Hey guys, welcome back to Tall Tales with Taco. My name is Mitch Taco Bell. I am your host. I'm a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel, and tonight I've got another Marine Lieutenant Colonel on. You guys have all seen him in the news. It's unless you've been hiding under a rock somewhere, you chances are you have not missed Stu. Stu Scheller is my guest tonight. We're going to talk about a couple different things, mainly what's going on over in Ukraine, utilizing some of his vast experience in counterinsurgency and things that he's seen, but also something that is near and dear to my heart. This is really hard. Stu was willing to lay his heart on the table and get it ripped out by posting a video which went viral, and I'm sure most of you have seen it, and a lot of my Marine friends have seen it. He literally told the truth, and the emperor has no clothes. Now, what impressed me about this wasn't the fact that Stu did this. He could have waited 3 years and then tried to make a point. No, he had the stones to do it with 17 years. That's 3 years to retirement, lose it all. So if there's anything, I'm sure it kills a lot of senior leaders who have seen it, and it's disappointing. But to have somebody that actually has the ability to do this, hats off to him. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on Stu. How are you, man?
I'm good, Mitch. Thanks for having me on.
Are you kidding? Listen, so tell everybody, they all have seen the video, and you've been on a million other podcasts, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But I'm just telling you from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate your candor, your ability to do what you did and take that chance. That was taking the sword and doing this to yourself. And it needed to be said. There's a lot of Marines out there. I got calls, all sorts of calls today from different folks going, "Hey, tell him, great job. Tell him I support him. Tell him." And so there was a overwhelming support coming from my retired friends, and I just wanted to pass that on to you.
Thanks.
Um,
That means a lot.
yeah, and I know that when you're going through all that stuff, um, we didn't have time to sit and shoot the bull before coming on here to kind of get a little background stuff going. But I know that you've gone through just a terrible, traumatic event. But what I love about it is you've come out through the other side and you're doing great, which I'm very proud of you, man. That's a hard thing to conquer.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been busy the last 2 months. Like you said, I've been on a lot of media. It was hard when I went through what I went through because I couldn't speak. I was on a gag order. And it was just very challenging in a lot of ways to counter some of the narratives. But, there was just so many. It was like everyone was looking for a reason to describe my actions other than I might just be a principled person. And so, pick it whether I was crazy, I was a right-wing extremist, a violent extremist, doing this for political reasons, doing this for financial reasons. I mean, everyone wanted to find something other than maybe he just really believes what he's saying. And the truth is, I really do just believe what I was saying. It was never any of those other things. And so I think that's why I was able to come out stronger, because as I was able to tell my side of the story, people I think started to come around and say, wow, maybe we overreacted and didn't necessarily take a knee and pause and talk to him and figure out why he was saying some of the things he was saying. And so it's been cathartic, but yeah, like you said, I feel like I came out stronger and got a lot of opportunities to try to move forward.
Well, nothing consolidates man better than getting beat in an ambush. They certainly threw everything at you, and just like you said on a lot of your stuff, yeah, guilty on all charges. I did it, and they're like, well, what do we do now? Mortar this guy, martyr this guy, or what? As a man, your first video, I was like, God, just resign right now, get out and run for office. I guarantee you there was a pack just chomping, waiting to get you in there and put you into office because we need folks with A, experience, and B, hold people accountable. You know, I like many. I served in Afghanistan, and I looked at that withdrawal as the biggest debacle I have ever seen. And you're absolutely right. How many billions of dollars worth of equipment did we leave over there? Um, how did we embolden our enemy? It's frustrating. It was kind of like everyone said we're on the Titanic rearranging the deck chairs back in '08. We kind of knew that, Afghanistan was never going to last there. They had sucked the life out of how many different countries over the millenniums and, million years. Those guys, well, not million years, but you know what I mean, since Alexander the Great, thousands of years, those guys have sucked the will out of different countries, used them until they were done with them, and then they just move on to the next folks. So I always felt like it was a little bit of that, but at the same time, I really loved it. I love the people. I love the country. It's beautiful, and I somewhat thought I was doing a good job. We were doing a good job. We were actually giving people a voice, democracy, stuff that they'd never had. And then it turns into that horrific withdrawal, in the middle of the night out of Bagram, which I don't miss Disney Drive, nor does anybody else, staying at the little, tents right there on Disney Drive across from the gym with the trucks driving by. But guarantee you that we definitely could have used that place when it comes to having a small contingent of Marines, A-10s, whatever, to be able to bring support and death and destruction down upon Taliban that decides they're going to come rolling in. What do you think?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Even Trump's plan that was conditional, that the Taliban didn't uphold, but his plan ended with Bagram Air Base. Bagram Air Base was the key critical piece of terrain that we needed to maintain. And not only did we decide to abandon it, but they had decided to abandon it about a month before they actually abandoned it. And why that's relevant is because they started planning the evacuation 1 April. So the planners were all assuming that Bagram was going to be the place where they conducted the evacuation. So it was almost like they had to restart the plan 1 July. And not only was it a bad call, but it was indecisive. I mean, it was like the worst of the worst. So it was no good.
Yeah, you said this a long time ago. If you screw up just once, you have a DUI or you have something or you say something wrong to some of your Marines at a function or a gathering, you get fired. I mean, you're fired in a heartbeat. So how come nobody has any accountability for their actions or responsibility to say, yeah, you know what, I did screw it up a little bit here. We could have done better with that. I mean, have you ever found anything out? Any inside stuff sent to you?
I got somebody sent me the investigation from the 13 service members that were killed. That's how I knew that General McKenzie had planned on, that's how I knew the staff was planning on Bagram all the way up through the end of June, where they did their tabletop exercise. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any other inside information. The reason general officers aren't held accountable is there's a lot. I mean, it's a complicated issue. There is no simple answer. The truth is, in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, our founding documents, they didn't envision the military to be foreign diplomacy in the manner that it is now. It was domestic defense. After World War II, when we kind of created the national security establishment that we have now, between the National Security Act of 44, 47, really the Goldwater-Nichols Act in the 80s was the last time we really reformed the model. And we just haven't gone back and figured out how to insert checks and balances. And I think people assume Congress is going to do it, but Congress has turned into a little bit of self-preservation. They'll say things that are popular and resonate with their base, but they're not going to stand against the DoD budget. They're not going to hold generals' feet to the fire in the manner with which they should. The president, ultimately being the commander in chief, if something goes bad with military policy, to fire a general signals that he also failed. So the executive branch holistically has just not been willing to fire generals for failed military campaigns. And so really that's why I've been so upset, is because I guess I just had an assumption that the senior military officers would be the ones full of integrity that would say, hey, we messed this up, or hey, we should have given better advice, or hey, I'm going to resign, political leader, because what you're asking me to do doesn't make sense. But we've fallen into this trap of, I mean, General McKenzie stated, I was just following orders. And it's the same thing the AFRICOM combatant commander did in Benghazi when it was 1 versus 1,000. And he was watching it on TV screens. He was told to stand down, and he just followed orders. General officers just following orders is not good enough anymore. And there's just no one in our documents or at the political level that's holding them accountable. So they've been unchecked for so long. And the other thing that complicates it is that the military's purpose should be winning wars. But what's happened is these senior general officers don't get to the 4-star rank by winning wars. They get to the 4-star level by navigating a career and pleasing their bosses. And so typically to do that, you need to be the type of person that doesn't push back. Because if you push back a lot, you don't end up getting promoted because your boss views you as a pain in the ass. So the guys that end up making to the top of the ranks are the guys that we need to be pushing back, but we've conditioned them through our system to not be that type of person. So they all just follow orders and aren't willing to say the things that some of our political leaders, absent of military experience, need to hear.
Well, you're absolutely right. And if you look at Mattis and some of the other generals, they can't say that they were wrong, because that means they were wrong the whole time.
I think Mattis was wrong the whole time. I think Mattis resigning very publicly over ISIS in Syria. ISIS was a product of his failed counterinsurgency policies in Iraq. And so, I like you grew up in a generation of nothing but counterinsurgency. Petraeus, all of them have been lionized based on counterinsurgency. It didn't work. I could have a whole separate conversation about this, but no one has gone back and checked the record book and said, how effective were these policies you implemented? And the bottom line is they weren't effective.
Well, I've said this before, and I'm on the record saying I'm tired of the U.S. military going in, breaking the toys, and then fixing them, going in and sending our guys in to go fix the sandbox and fix all the toys inside the sandbox. We are the people that go in and destroy stuff, and we don't go rebuild it. I mean, ever since World War II, we've been doing that to our detriment. When you look at how Germany and Japan excel past us with brand new factories that we produced, that we helped them build. So over the years, it's frustrating to see people go in and build schools and all the millions and billions of dollars. I mean, we were spending $1 billion a month in Afghanistan to support and house and feed and all the stuff that we were doing for the Afghans. And I only know all the inside numbers because I was at the embassy at the political military affairs there. So I could see all the numbers and charts. And what's amazing, though, from a staff officer, a lowly guy out in the field who sends in his report, that report got washed about 15 times before it even made it to the general officer rank. So by the time General Cohn, who was the Army 2-star at Stika, who I ultimately, one of my bosses, by the time he saw it in a brief, I had already witnessed a couple different briefs days before, and I heard the actual numbers, and I'm like, where are they getting this stuff from? But, where they had shifted stuff to, oh, sir, we have eradicated how many hectares and acres of PEF fields with the poppy eradication force, and all this great stuff. And then the guy comes in from University of Texas and he goes, you guys, you do realize that you're paying that farmer $5,000 to cut down all the weeds, right? To cut down all the poppies. He'd already harvested them. They'd already been harvested. You're giving this guy money. We didn't even know that. So here we are running around tearing down fields. And by the time it got to the general was like this great success program, So,
well, they did that after the Afghan evacuation too, right? They all, Secretary of Defense, I mean, all of them, McKenzie, Donahue taking a picture of himself getting on the bird like he was this war hero that had just
the last guy off the field.
The whole thing stunk.
Yeah. Well, we can't go back and fix that now, but what can we do in the future? And how do we find the patents, the people that need to do the right stuff out there, even if they may be a pain in the ass in Eisenhower's side? Where do we get those guys and unleash them so that they can do the right thing? I know you probably have your opinions on the commandant, And I gotta tell you, he was my OSO, so he got me into the Marine Corps, and I'm still in contact with him. And I look at all the stuff that he's done. I've had a lot of friends go, "Your friggin' OSO screwed us, got rid of artillery and tanks and all this stuff." But there is a purpose, and he's a very, very smart man. There is a purpose somewhere in there that's going to help us when we have to face our threat in China. But right now, um, we've been so uh, the military is genderfied, and we have to do inclusive training and all that stuff. Where did you see that commercial, the Russian commercial, where the dude jumps out of bed
No.
and the Russian guy jumps out. Oh man, you haven't seen that? The guy jumps out of bed and he just looks like he's about to eat, grab a whole box of Wheaties, and he's doing pull-ups and all this stuff. And then it shows the army recruiting commercial, and it's this cartoon about this girl with her two moms and how this has made me so good. And you're just like, oh my God, what? And then the Ukrainians, they just came out and um, they posted a recruiting video where the guy's walking along. He's like, I'm a bus driver. I'm a best man at a friend's wedding. I'm a engineer. I'm a geology student and all this stuff. We are all Ukrainian. We didn't want war, but we're here to fight it. And it just motivated the crap out of me. I asked my wife last night if I could go join the mercenary corps, and she's like, hell no. But so be it. Speaking of Ukraine, what do you think? Oh, Putin's gotten himself into a little quagmire here. You can definitely take over a country, but can you occupy it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question. I don't think he ever wanted to occupy it. Very easy to invade, much harder to hold. He wants a quick, decisive victory. He wants Ukrainians to negotiate, come to the table, and they haven't done that. They went into negotiations yesterday, but they didn't get anywhere. He's continuing to attack. But the longer this goes on, the much worse it is for Russia.
Yeah. Well, they just basically got themselves into new Afghanistan because civil war, Afghanistan like conditions because everybody's got an AK and they don't know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. They're going to get sniped every quarter. Molotov cocktails. It's going to be Red Dawn for sure for those guys. I mean, I laugh because that was always our favorite movie in the '80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, or idea that we're going to take over. Um,
Wolverines.
yeah, Wolverines, man. Hey, kid, all that hate's going to burn you up at night. Sir, it keeps me warm at night. I got a question here. Brian Palmer, Colonel Palmer is a JAG. Nothing but the highest respect for you both. Question for Stuart: of contemporary USMC general officers, who do you respect the most?
I have a lot of respect for a lot of 1 stars. I think as they start to navigate up through the career, they just become a little bit more disconnected. But General Wortman, General Klingen, General there's one. I can see the third one's face. I'm spaced on his name, but there's 3 1 stars that I've worked with just in the last 5 years that I thought, man, these guys are incredible. But that a 1 star is at 25 years, a 4 star is at 40 years. That 15 years of pleasing your bosses does a lot to change the soul and character of a person.
Well, I've worked a lot. I worked as a young captain for a major who ended up retiring as a 3 star. All the respect for him in the world. The hardest working guy I've ever met, smartest guy I've ever met, and not a photographic memory, but probably damn close to it. And he did good stuff. I always thought, he'd be great ACMAC, but he ended up retiring. See what happens. Joe Harrison, you happen to know Joe Harrison by chance? Joe's an infantry officer. He was my tactics instructor at TBS.
I don't think I know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think to Joe's question, yeah, I mean that I knew when I made the first video that they weren't going to be held accountable. I was hoping to start a conversation where they would at least engage it. That's why it started escalating between me and the Marine Corps, because after I made my statements, they continued to just kind of, in my perception bully me without ever addressing the content of my statements, which was, can some of you address that this wasn't the success you're purporting or projecting? And none of them ever did that at all.
Have you ever had an opportunity to be on stage with any of them, or TV
No,
show or
not
anything?
yet. It's still pretty raw. I mean, I've only been out for 2 months, right? So I think that time will come, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. So talk about what you're doing right now.
Right now, I'm just active supporting political candidates and writing a book. So I was at CPAC this past weekend. I've developed a coalition of veteran candidates running in the election. And so really just writing a book, discussing everything that we're talking about, how to hold senior military leaders accountable, kind of just my story for the last 17 years and some of the things that I think need to be done better in the military. And then I'm going on the campaign trail and supporting those that I think would make a difference in DC.
Yeah, well, as Freddie Joe, who's my favorite bullet sponge, you said what all us bullet sponge thought, Semper Fi. Yeah, I tell you what, to have Freddie Joe give you a thumbs up, that sergeant's friggin' awesome. So there's a lot of guys out there, I'm sure, that disagree with you and want to punish you and put you out behind the woodshed for what you did, but that wasn't an easy thing to do at the sacrifice of your family, your career, everything that was going about. But I always believe in God points, Stu, and I believe that while this is something that you've had to navigate around to the left or to the right, God's going to bring you back onto the path to. You wouldn't be where you were years from now if it wasn't for that moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think God has a plan. I think he took care of my family and me. Each time I hit something that seems insurmountable, something kind of just falls in my lap that helps me keep moving forward. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think though God whispers, it requires us to hear that and take action ourselves, right? So there's a lot of things a lot of walls that I had to kick down myself without knowing what was on the other side, but still moving forward.
Well, I know Joe wants insight on this stuff, but I got to ask you, do you know who Alan West is?
I don't.
Alan West was over in Afghanistan with us as a civilian contractor. He'd gotten kicked out, not kicked out, but pretty much resigned from the Army. They gave him the choice, do this or resign. In Iraq, they had caught one of the guys that was helping make the bombs that were making the IEDs. And so during the interrogation, Alan pulled out his 9mm and said, if you don't tell me what I need, I'm gonna shoot you. And he ended up pulling the trigger. The guy squealed like a pig, told him exactly where the IED guy was. They went and they got the guy, and they never get hit by an IED the rest of the time. So he goes before the BOI and they say, Lieutenant Colonel West, knowing what you know now, would you do it over again, knowing that you're going to be coming before us and your career's in jeopardy and all this? Would you have done it again? And Alan looked at all of them and said, if it means saving the lives of my men, I'd run through the gates of hell with an open gas can. So he's running for governor down here in Texas. I love this guy. That to me, he is a Stu. You and Alan, in my eyes, it's a very tough decision that you made, but you made it and you went forward and knowing the full well the consequences. So I will ask, knowing what you know, would you do it all over again?
Yeah,
Or
I
how would
believe
you
that.
do it differently? How
Yeah,
could you do it
two
differently?
different questions, right? So
Yeah.
I believe fully in the things that I stated, and I still believe them fully. I'm still committed to them. There's things that I would have done differently. Just some of the follow on, like the first video, I wouldn't have changed anything. Like that was me, very critical thought, not under a lot of duress. As the situation progressed, I mean, it's hard to even put into context what I was going through. And so it's easy just to kind of look at some of the statements and rip apart little pieces of language, because some of those things I said got people off the track, and that's where I probably would have tweaked it. But ultimately, the message of there's a double standard. We have hypocrites as leaders. Our leaders are failing us at the operational and strategic level. They continue to focus on the tactical level when our tactical service members are winning every engagement. the system is not functioning as designed and no one is addressing it. And so
Mhm.
all of that, I stand by. I'll stand by forever.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of tough knowing that you have Marines die. Did they die in vain? And
Well,
then the
that's
Marines.
what bothered me the most was when your OSO sent out the letter to the force addressing if people died in vain, and he said no. He basically just superficially said, "No, your sacrifice is worth it, but if you're struggling, go seek the therapist." And that was I just summarized the whole letter. And at no
Yeah.
point in the letter did he say there was bad decisions made at the general officer level that led to the feelings you're having right now, and that's on us. That's what a leader does. And
Yeah.
so it bothered me significantly.
Yeah. I've got a thing from a chaplain buddy of mine, Dave Harvey. Did you ever talk to your chaplain during the process?
My chaplain hounded me like a hound dog. I engaged him. I talked to, they made me go to the mental health hospital. They made me talk to all the people, but it just seemed like everyone was out to get me. I mean, the Marine Corps public affairs team was attacking me publicly, like it was really, I mean, my friends were texting me asking if they could help and then sending those texts to the investigating officer. Right. So, um, all people that I trusted were turning their backs on me. So I was pretty isolated through the event.
Yeah. And did you find a rock? Did you have somebody that you could literally lean on? And
No, I didn't.
how about now?
Yeah, now I'm in a good place. But back then, I didn't have anyone. I thought. I mean, my parents would probably be my immediate family. Those were probably the only people I would have trusted. Outside of that, not really.
Yeah, your first video, like you said, was point on. Then the one I remember watching in the car in the
Yeah, school bus.
bus in the bus. I was like, no, 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 no. I could see the cracks. I'm thinking, oh God, this guy's got PTS, and
Yeah,
and
that's
and
what
you could
everyone
see
thought.
the cracks just going through. It's emotional. It hurt. It hurt my heart to watch that. I got to tell you, brother, it hurt. And then your third one, I was like, ah, I wish I could. You knew me well enough. I could go, hey, listen, man, let's go over here. Let's find somebody and get you hooked up with somebody to give you a little guidance, just social media guidance or something to help you out. Because all I wanted was Stu to get out and represent me somewhere in the government to make things happen. Like Ronnie Jackson. Do you know Ronnie Jackson?
I do.
Yeah. So Ronnie and I were running buddies in Iraq, and he comes back here after getting screwed by all those hounds up there on the hill, and he runs for Congress. Now he's back up there. And
Yep.
I would just love to be a fly on the wall to hear him what he says privately to some of the same people who used him as a tool and drug up all these lies and things about him. So, I am so proud of him for where he is now. As equally, I will be as proud of you when you do one day decide that you want to serve. I will be sending my money to you. Definitely. I've
Thank you.
got some other things here. Joe, how do you feel about candidates holding to term limits?
Yeah,
Candidates in federal service?
yeah. But the bottom line is, everyone agrees that congressmen should have term limits. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but you're hard pressed to find someone that doesn't think that that's a great idea. So hopefully we can get there one day. I think the voice is building, but it should be a requirement.
Yeah, it would, but you would think, but it never will. I mean, it's become how do you make $176,000 a year and yet you're a multimillionaire and owned $1 million homes like Nancy? Tell Stu I hold him in the highest regard for his integrity and courage. As a passed over major, I said whatever I wanted, and I feel like I got away with murder because nobody cares for the passed over what the passed over major says. That is so true, and that goes for passed over lieutenant colonels. You know?
There's a lot of freedom in that, though, right?
Yeah,
When you're
yeah.
not like I diagnosed the problem of senior general officers is they're so worried about their career they lose perspective. And so there is some freedom in that.
Yeah, just a little bit to be able to say what you want.
Mhm.
Why does he think U.S. is so bereft of leadership at all levels, and we have such a shitty choice for elected offices? Yeah, that's Hey, is it the culture now? I mean, we have to be inclusive and we have to be kinder, gentler, and we're getting out of the military should be left alone and they should be war fighters and that's it. And if you don't want to join the military, it's like wearing a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. But if you want to be a meat eater and serve under leaders like Stu and go kick in doors and do great things with your men, then join the Marine Corps. You know what I mean? Don't join it if you want a gender change or something. God, that drives me nuts. Larry Allen, if he was POTUS today, what would you do to help the Ukraine and its people? That's a huge question.
That's one of those questions that, am I coming into the situation now and reacting to the situation on the ground? That would be a completely different scenario. If before this Ukrainian conflict, I quite honestly would have pulled everyone out of NATO if I was in the United States and put them on the Mexican-American border. I think most people remember World War II and what NATO came in the aftermath of that, but they forget about World War One. World War One was created by large alliances in the same as NATO. And World War Two was a product of the treaties post World War One. And so these large treaties that obligate us to war can oftentimes lead us to the very thing they're supposed to be designed to prevent. And that's Putin's whole justification. Now, honestly, I think Putin's using that as a scapegoat because he wants a land grab. But either way, I would have prevented it because I think we've crippled our European partners by the amount of money that we pour into NATO. And I personally just don't see the utility in NATO anymore. So if I was the president, I'm not saying I would walk in the door and completely dismantle it. I'd talk to my experts. I would think through all the implications. But my outside looking in perspective is I think we are involved way too much in NATO to the point where we've crippled it and we've built and justified some of the actions of people like Putin. Now, if I was to show up now, I would just be arming them with anti-armored assets, and I would try to draw Russia into a long counterinsurgency because that's the best way to make it painful for them.
Oh, well, it's going to be that way anyway. We start delivering javelins to the border and law rockets and whatever. Those guys are going to be in a hurt locker when you think about it. Back to your point about what you would do if you were POTUS. I thought as much as everybody hates Trump and his mean tweets, he hit it on the head when he went and told Germany, you guys aren't paying your fair share.
Yeah.
You guys aren't paying your fair share. You guys need to step up, pay your money because we're tired of protecting your countries and your valuable assets and your economy, which is, robust. And we've been doing this stuff.
He also called him out for the pipeline Germany developed with Russia. And he said, does anyone think this is a good idea? And everyone was giving him a hard time. But you're right. He was calling accurate shots.
Yeah, he really was. And if this was 6 months ago, no, maybe a year ago, year and a half ago, I would have said, disband NATO. We don't need it, right? When are we ever going to have a war with Russia? I mean, what guy in his right mind would threaten us with the nukes? What guy would just invade that little neighboring country? Nobody, he won't do that. But then, he did Crimea, he did Georgia. Now he's doing it to the Ukraine. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And our guy that's in office right now, Uncle Joe, had he just left everything alone, we would have been energy independent. We would have had all of our stuff. But now we had to go buy oil from the Russians to empower that guy, which drives me nuts. So if you were president, I think what you said about bringing troops down to the border, hell yeah, let's protect our own border first. We need it. We need to protect our border. And then we'll worry about other people. But, what do they call that back? Teddy Roosevelt, walk softly, carry a big stick. But at the time, we were isolation. I mean, we withdrew into ourselves and didn't really care what was happening around the globe. And I think that did kind of come bite us in the butt. I don't think, Larry, are you up on any of the assets that they have over there, that they have going over there right now? Like air assets, why they don't have more helicopters? Have you gotten any briefs on this stuff from anybody?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't either. Somebody asked about that, to try to take out that 40-mile. That all the or all the Apache pilots I know that are watching this right now, I guarantee you they're all watching the news going,
Yeah,
just give me a couple of squadron of Apaches. We'll go in there and take out, the first half of that 40-mile deal, and we'll stop them all.
that's
But
right.
yeah, I don't know how it's going to work. Isolationism doesn't work. Um, Olga is from Ukraine, and she can definitely tell us a little bit. I need to bring her on my show. She can give us a great insight into what her relatives are doing right now as we're
Yeah,
going into.
I guess I just want to clarify. Um, NATO and foreign diplomacy of isolationism are not the same thing. So just because the United States doesn't have as robust of a NATO presence doesn't mean the United States is isolationist. I mean, the United States has more of a foreign global presence than any other country in the world. I have been on 2 deployments on ships that goes all across the world and engages with all the nations and is ready to respond that no other country does. And so I think we're making a big mental leap if we just say withdrawing from NATO now makes United States an isolationist country, because I don't think that's the case. And furthermore, the example about Roosevelt back then, it was much easier and much quicker to isolate, but now we're so connected that I don't think even if we wanted to isolate, it would even be possible.
Yeah.
So we just
No,
got to
my comment really was like a year and a half ago. If I thought it was feasible to get out of NATO, pull all of our troops out of Germany, Italy, England, like why do we need them? That's always been thrown out there. Why do we need them? But now shows we're in this and why we do, because we've got no kidding. Um, do I compare him to Hitler? He is definitely insane. That guy, in my mind, is insane. So who knows? I mean, Hitler did the exact same thing when it came to Czechoslovakia and then Poland and everything else in World War II. So what leads us to think that he's just going to take the little sections and walk away from it?
the counter argument to that is if the United States wasn't there, potentially the same defense could be withheld with stronger European assets, and that
Yeah.
our robust capabilities actually crippled our European partners to provide the same type of response. So there's no easy answer to all these. You can, if you do this, then that. It just these are complicated issues, and I just think my personal opinion is that the United States actually is doing more harm than good. I'm not saying there's no good in NATO. I'm just saying I think what we're doing is the benefits don't outweigh the cost.
Well, I like NATO as an idea and the guys working together. I don't like the UN. I saw more waste with the UN over in Afghanistan than I'll ever in my
Yeah.
lifetime. Olga, she is actually Russian. She clarified that, but she hates what's going on with all that. I had to get you on there, Olga.
Yeah, we need to get
Nostastrovia.
her on the show.
Yeah, Nostastrovia. You know what? I tell you what. You hang on 1 second. Tell us something's going on. I'm gonna get Olga to email me, and I'll send her a link. We'll bring her on. How about that? We can do that. All right. Send me a PM on Facebook with your email, and I will send you a link to the show, Olga. So while Stu and I are sitting here talking, if you see me kind of moving around, I'm going to get her on the show
I'm
with
gonna
us.
walk around and get my computer cord because I think I'm about to die.
No worries. Well, folks, while we've got him on here, if you guys have questions, feel free to write them in the comments, and I will bring them up on the screen and ask Stu your thoughts. And Joe, I hope I answered your questions. Chris, do you think Putin stops with the Ukraine, or does he want more? You know what? I think he wants it all. I truly do. I think he wants it all, and there's no stopping him. So how do you fix that? I don't have a good answer for that. We'll have to see where he goes. But when you start threatening the use of nukes, that's a game stopper. I mean, we could all easily sit there and do a a conventional war, but when you throw the threats of nukes out there, I've had different people on my show talk about EMP pulses and how the world is going to end because of that. And you know what? Um, that is a very, um, very valid deal when you think about it. EMP pulse would absolutely shut our country down. And if we had something like that happen, we'd, no power. We'd be at each other's throats in America inside of 3 days. We'd have the Chinese taking over the West Coast as peacekeepers to try to help out the Chinese residents of former Chinese residents living in America. Do you happen to know Assad Khan? Have you met him?
I know a
That
couple
doesn't ring a bell.
cons, but I don't know their first names, so I don't know.
He's a Marine. He's a Marine. Joe
What's
and
his
I
rank?
know. He was Lieutenant Colonel.
I know I worked with a major con that went on to become a lieutenant colonel, so maybe.
Yeah, that might have been him. Um, yep. Oh, hey, here we go. Let's see, Olga. I sent you the link, so you should have it. And when you get it, click on it and come join us on the show. You can give us a little Russian perspective. I've got to say, and I'm sure you have done this too, social media has produced some of the greatest memes I have ever seen when it comes to this whole war. The
Yeah.
javelins. There was a picture of 5 Ukrainian guys sitting there with javelins, and it said 2022 Olympic javelin, Ukrainian Olympic javelin team. Oh my God. So I'll just wait and see if she comes on. You might have some questions, and she can clarify some stuff if you've got some
Yeah. While
questions.
we're waiting on her, I'll just offer, when I was at Command and Staff College, my peer was a Department of State, worked at the Russian embassy. She was I think she was from Latvia originally, but she's a very intelligent woman, a peer of mine in the Department of State, and her philosophy is that NATO is critical, and that I'm an idiot for, I've had this belief that NATO is too big and robust and needs to slim down since I was a major, and we had these conversations. So, there's other opinions out there, and I engage all these other opinions, and I have mine, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, I don't think we're going to get her on the show, but Stu, any other? Have you been contacted by any junior Marines?
Oh yeah, it's been overwhelming. The junior Marines all love me. When I was in the military, I couldn't even drive on the base without the gate guards like trying to take pictures and give me hugs. But so that's never been the issue. It's always been senior officers.
What about junior officers?
Yeah, I think the company grade officers holistically have really been supportive too, because the young company officers get shit on all the time too. There's a sharp divide between really 06 and up and kind of the rest of the force.
Yeah. Well,
Major and lieutenant colonel is kind of that middle area. So some do, some don't.
yeah. Let's see. Jim Kazin, remember attending a commander's meeting at one of our KC-130 OAG events. I will never forget one of my fellow COs responding to an issue we were wrestling with by commenting, "What would the general say?" Not surprisingly, the kiss ass went on to attain 2-star rank. Good on you, Stu, for calling out poor leadership. We need more people to speak the power of truth. Truth to power. Yeah, no kidding, right?
So yeah, so I'll say on that comment, I do think that in any bureaucracy, it doesn't even need to be the military, it could be a corporate job. You need to understand what your boss thinks, wants, desires, right? But there comes in certain issues a divergence of, okay, I know what my boss is going to want, but this is the right thing to do. And so I wouldn't demonize people for thinking about what their bosses want. But use my video, for example. I knew my bosses didn't want me to do that, right? But I did something because I thought this was the right thing to do. So I've always thought about what my bosses wanted, and you don't really get very far if you don't have that consideration. but you have to be principled and grounded and educated enough to at times veer from that if you think it's the right thing to do.
Well, let me ask you this: at Monday morning staff meetings, when you guys are sitting around the round table,
Mm-hmm.
did they ever this stuff discussion ever come up? And did you voice anything prior to these guys?
About
To
Afghanistan?
Yeah, yeah, or at the O
No,
Club on a Friday night?
it was weird
Did it
because I was in a
come out?
brand new job. I'd only been there for 6 weeks, and I didn't know my boss very well. So it was just kind of one of those situations where no. I mean, my previous job when I was the regimental opso, yes, because it started because I took over in June, end of June, really, at my battalion command. So this withdrawal started in April, and
Right.
watching it just not being done effectively. I had conversations with my regimental commander about it because he was focused on China. And, my comments were like, we're not even getting out of Afghanistan effectively. Like, why are we focusing on the South China Sea? And then he came back and told me, well, that's your job. You're a military officer. Your job is to focus on what they tell you to focus on. And we went back and forth, but it was done in a professional manner. But, so yeah, there were some, but not in my current job.
What about at a social event or a O Club setting or something with your counterparts, other O5s? Did you have any other O5s, battalion commanders, or anybody else
No, I
discuss this
mean,
with
we don't.
you? And
The thought process that we all go hang out at the O Club is just it just didn't really happen. There was times where we'd hang out on the weekends, but I can't think of a weekend party we had. Once Bagram was evacuated. So from when Bagram got evacuated and the Taliban took over the country. So Bagram was evacuated on 5 July, and the Taliban rapidly advanced starting in August, and then the attack happened on the 26th. So I mean, really, when the thing completely the wheels came off the vehicle was in like 6 weeks, and I just don't remember sitting around the fire with the guys in those 6 weeks. I mean, I talked to my family about it. That was about
yeah.
it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wondered about that. I mean, it's different story for us because in the squadron we've got 30 guys. So, what are you doing Friday night? Hit the club. And so you sit there, shoot the bull. But yeah, I could see it. Yeah. You probably don't have a handful of O5s out there that you could discuss that stuff with, do you?
I mean, if you live on base, it might be different. I didn't live on base, so no. I mean, I'm working full-time job, and I'd come home and hang out with my family.
Now, what about work now? What are you doing now?
Just writing a book, and going to events and speaking on media is really what I'm doing.
Would you like to be a reporter in the Ukraine? I have a paid position. I just got asked, looking for a reporter in the Ukraine. Would you like to be boots on the ground in the Ukraine? And we're talking like, getting paid.
I will listen to all opportunities. Part of that sounds fun, so shoot me
Well,
an email.
I
We can
tell you
talk.
what, I will get you hooked up with my friend, and his name is Mr. Wolf. So, Mr. Wolf, he's
Well,
he's
shit.
a he is a fixer.
I like him already.
Yeah, I'm telling you, John's good shit. So he is the fixer. He's Mr. Fixer. And so right now there's a deal being brought forth that's going to be huge, and he's sending me some emails about some other stuff. And it just happened. I was joking about, man, I really'd like to go over to the Ukraine. He goes, we're looking for a reporter, and we're talking paid to go over and be boots on the ground. And I'm like, hey, honey, do you think I'd go over to the Ukraine, be a mercenary, or be a reporter? And she's like, no, you're done. I'm like, man, if I was 30 years old, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But
I actually had an OCS classmate that went over to Syria doing that, and he was taken hostage, and we never found him.
oh, really?
So
Yeah.
there's some
Yeah.
risk in that.
Yeah, there is. There is. I mean, but there's some excitement as well. And,
Yeah.
some stories to be had for sure. I look at guys that I knew that flew manned ISR, and they were all over the world doing this stuff out of small civilian airplanes. Yeah, there were a couple of them went to prison down in, oh God, I think Venezuela, and they were down there for 10 years in prison. So it wasn't a pleasant thing. No State Department getting them out. Well, I've kept you on the hook for 50 minutes, and I know you're a busy dude. You probably have like 3 emails right now going, Stu, we need you on Fox News. We need you on Newsmax. We need you on. Yeah. I hope that they're paying you. You got to tell them that you're
No, no,
dude. You need to
no.
be
I've not. I've been. You're no shit. I've done probably 100 interviews, so we'll see.
well, they call it the Fox News contributor.
Mhm.
So you need to be a Fox a news
Brother, I'm
contributor.
familiar. I'm familiar with the process, but no, I'm not there yet.
All right. Well, if anybody else has any questions for Stu, now's the time to hit him up. I can't thank you enough. I know you were with Rich Ryerson, Ned. He's a C-130 guy. He's got an incredible podcast. Of course, he's light years, ahead of me in terms of talking to people. But
Yeah, I guess before I get off, one plug. So my website is AuthenticAmericans.com. You can go there. You can find all my social media. So if you want to message me, you can message me on any of my social platforms, all tied to my website, AuthenticAmericans.com. Also, my email's there. And you can pre-order the book I'm working on. There's merchandise. There's ways to donate to political action communities to my platform. So everything is one-stop shop at AuthenticAmericans.com. So if you want to learn more about me, just check that out.
hey, speaking of that, how do you've got about maybe 15 people on there for office. I think that's phenomenal. Are you tying in PACs to be able to help them out?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
people
Yeah.
running for office?
I partnered with the Disabled Veterans PAC, and yeah, we are funding. We can't fund all of them because we just don't have that much money.
Right.
But we have enough money to do certain events and help them where we can.
That's fantastic. Well, God bless you, sir. And I saw you were down on the border. You got a minute to talk about that?
Yeah.
Your stuff
I mean,
down on the border?
I brought up NATO on the border. I went to the border myself to see it firsthand. I met with a border control agent, and I met with the National Guard, some of the local law enforcement, and got all the stats myself. And I mean, it was crazy. There was like they were telling me the night previous they caught 120 in this one little 30-mile stretch.
Yeah.
And we went and you could see the bags of clothes that they would carry a plastic bag with a change of clothes, go through the river, get wet, and then change your clothes, and then leave the old wet clothes. And they're all just sitting there. And I mean, it's just such a problem. It's such a problem. And I think people are so distrusting of the media that they just don't know what to believe, to be quite honest with you. So that's why I went there myself, because I quite honestly didn't know what to believe. But there's like over 1,900 miles of border. And if
Right.
in a 30-mile stretch that they're telling me 120 crossed the night before, just do the math, do the ratio there. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking thousands of people crossing the border every night illegally. I mean, I'm all for legal immigration, but we need to have a process in place. And right now we just don't. And it's a problem.
Yeah. Did you hear they were pulling border guards, custom border dudes to send over to the Ukraine or
No,
Poland or
I didn't hear
whatever the
that.
heck they're talking about?
Sounds about right. But no, I didn't hear that.
Oh my God. I don't know. Hey, Freddie Joe says he'll TA your movie.
All right.
He works out in Hollywood, so he'll
Yeah,
do a treatment and help you out with your movie
I
when
love
you're
it.
ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Hit me
Freddie
up.
Joe will get him on there and you could, I don't know, Brad Pitt plays him, right? Let's see. I worked for the border for 21 years. It's unbelievable what's really happening.
It is.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
people need to go. I mean, it's not hard. You can literally drive there and look at it. I mean, I stood and watched the Mexican cartel drive back and forth, watching us as we watched them. And then the guy got out and walked halfway across the river and got on his phone, which was obviously not actually on his phone, and he was filming us because
Mhm.
I was standing with the National Guard guys. And I was like, this is like, how is this happening? Like, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I've got a buddy that's over outside of Tucson, and when I went to go visit him, we're driving to his ranch. He has a ranch. He's got a submarine on his ranch.
That's awesome.
He's kind of a centric fella, and we're driving over the mountains. It's 2 hours from Tucson, and we're driving over them. I'm like, how much longer we got? Oh, just over the next range. I was buying some tank parts from him, and so we go to his place, and he's got a submersible that literally goes on the Lusitania submarine. But he's right there on the border. He goes, "Don't turn your cell phone on because it'll pick up the Mexican cell phone towers, you'll get charged astronomical fees. I'm like, okay, great, thanks for the heads up. So I left it in airplane mode. But while we were there, I saw a glint up on the mountain flash, and I kind of was like, that was strange. And then I caught it again, and I go, is there somebody with glass watching us? And he goes, oh yeah, Overwatch. On our team? No, no, they're cartel snipers. And so the drugs and stuff come through right through my ranch and over into the border through my ranch. I'm like, and you don't have the cops or anybody? He goes, dude, look, man, do I want to wake up with my throat sliced in the middle of the night? No, I just let live. You guys leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. And that's the life down on the border. He's sick of it. He hates it, but it's just one guy. He can't do anything about it. And if you ever make it to Yuma, Yano flies EMS out there. I bet you he could borrow a helicopter from a buddy and take you from the air to go see what's going on out there. Definitely. And
The border agent told me that just like a week before I showed up, maybe not a week, maybe it was like a month before I showed up, there was a family jet skiing, a husband and wife on the, I think it was the Rio Grande. I don't remember, but they got too close to the drug cartel side and they shot him. They fucking murdered him. I mean, that's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, international, right? Daniel's Apache pilot, I had him on the show, did a speaking event for the Texas border. I couldn't even believe what I was showing him. Lots of LARPs on the cartel side watching the border patrol based on our side. Yeah, that's scary stuff. I mean, we got our own war going on right here, and we can't do anything about it.
Well, we can.
Well,
we're choosing not to.
No, yeah, we've got to protect Ukraine so Hunter can get his checks from Burisma.
You give me NATO, I'll have that border problem solved in 6 months.
Oh, dude, if I could make you a general, put you up in the Pentagon, how about Secretary of Defense?
It's my dream job.
Yeah, wouldn't that be good? They'd love to have you. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I don't know. The people might, but I don't think the generals would. But we would fix some problems very quickly.
Yeah, you start giving them the knife hand, man. Give them the Marine Corps knife hand. Hey, Mattis taught me one thing. I'm going to give you the knife hand. Let's see, you got to get it right. Yeah, give you the knife hand, and we're going to stop this. You're going to stop the critical race theory. We're going to stop the this, and this, and no more PowerPoints on whatever. I don't know. It's crazy. Well, brother, listen. If you give me 1 second, I'm going to stop the podcast. But if you hang on for a minute, I just want to talk to you off air, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, I hope you guys enjoyed Stu. I can't thank you enough for coming and joining me tonight. I know I'm no Joe Rogan or Jocko. God, that guy's a stud. But really do appreciate you coming on my show and hanging out with Taco. Hold on 1 second, brother. I'll be right back with you. All right. Folks, if you get a chance, go to Stu's website. I've got it on there. He posts a lot of great stuff on LinkedIn. Always have him set to see whatever his first post is. And there's Authentic Americans right below in the remarks section on the banner. So if you want to go there, visit his site. You want to contribute? I don't care if it's $5. I don't care if it's $50. If you want to give him some money, help out, you've got a good Marine. And as I said before, this is a guy that I highly respect for the core courage and moral fortitude to do what he thought was right, which the leadership traits down running on the banner, I have them taped to the top of my computer. And he exhibited so many of these things: courage, loyalty. Some may question that, but I don't, because you know what? It's loyalty to his Marines. Endurance, he's pacing all the way through this. Integrity is a big one. Bearing, yeah. Tell you what, I wish we could grab Stu and Patton and bring him back from the grave, and we could have some great folks in charge of our stuff. Listen, until next week, you guys have a great one. Adios, hasta luego, wiedersehen, tschüss, sheshene, au revoir, domo arigato gozaimasu, shinde kudasai, ciao, arrivederci. And for Olga, Nostastrovia das Vidanya. Anyway, you guys see you next week. Hoorah. Oh, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, right? Anyway, take care.